unbreakable. Deeply researched and mixed with the supernatural, good versus evil makes these thrillers hard to put down. Available at Lulu.com in paperback or ebook.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, so you don't watch that. See, there's nothing too. We can make that go away. Yep. There's nothing too about one of my Skype recorders, right? Sometimes it's not supposed to turn on until you're on a Skype call, but sometimes I'll see it's turned on. It's recording everything in my room. So, God, Zooks. So this crazy story, man. Guy named Bobby Thompson, right? And he's on trial in Cleveland, right? And he faces 40 years in prison on charges of fraud, theft, money laundering. Because he took in $100 million in donations for U.S. Navy Veterans Association, a charity that's based out of Tampa. Tampa's like 1 hour from where I am here right now. So I had a little chat with one of his lawyers. Now, all of his state chapters were just mail drops, right? And his directors were people with fake IDs, right? The guy got fake IDs and created fake directors of his charity. And then he took the money from the charity and he used it for his own personal, enjoyment. But also, too, he used it for political donations, okay? And he actually has a couple of pictures with President George W. Bush, right? He filed his handwritten response to the legal complaint, right? His indictment there, that he was really a secret CIA operation, right? Now, he did have military intelligence clearance and a security clearance back in the 70s, working for a non-disclosed intelligence agency. And he said he was still working for the CIA as a non-official cover agent while running the charity. And the reason for the charity was to make people all around the world think that there was a lot of support for anti-terrorism and U.S. military. And he said it was a U.S. intelligence community, White House, and Republican Party manipulated operation. Now, one of his, I gotta give some thanks here to the woman here, Leanna Lynx, on the weird scenes inside the canyon, because she popped up she found some stuff out of this guy too. Listen to this. While he was on the lam, right, in February 2012, he created another stolen identity, Lance Guy Martin. And he had an address on a reservation in New Mexico and in Providence, Rhode Island. But the tribal police said Martin had never been on an airplane, so the marshals flew to Providence and found Thompson's landlord. Thompson said he had been gone for a few months, but had left his apartment in a rather unusual state. When the landlord walked in, it contained a pulpit, chairs, and religious paraphernalia. As a fugitive, Thompson tried to start a Christian charity. Okay, this guy, even while he's on the run, right? Now, one of the things he saw, by the way, he's in his handwritten response to the complaint, right? He's calling all these witnesses, right? Like 40 witnesses that are familiar with this operation: politicians, intelligence operatives, Navy veterans associates, David Petraeus, Eric Holder, Barack Obama are all on this list. And he puts in there a request, okay? Because he asserts that the U.S. intelligence agents had subjected him to hypnosis and psychotropic drugs to establish or maintain his various covers. Now, by the way, too, his military file does contain a top-secret security clearance approved in the 1970s by an unnamed federal agency other than the Department of the Army. So he claims it was CIA command. And other details suggest he belonged to a clandestine CIA command and trained military reservists to employ as operatives abroad. So there is a lot of stuff to back up his wild claims of all this stuff here. Let me see that. This is something I never read, but no, that's a question. Okay, he says that the purpose of the charity, from the standpoint of George W. Bush's CIA, he wrote, the mission of the USNVA was to influence public and elite opinion among our traditional allies, especially Britain, but also France, Israel, and others, who, witnessing hard support by Joe and Jane Sixpack in the form of small donations, would be encouraged to get behind the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now that does make sense, too. That would be something that would influence foreign governments and foreign allies. Now, it talks here, too, about how his attorney suggested that Thompson's covert experience was well known by the politicians who benefited from his generosity. Bobby Thompson appears on White House logs, he said. I'm pretty sure everyone who met him there knows who he is. He also said that he gave a lot of money to Ohio Republicans who got campaign donations from Thompson. They included House Speaker John Boehner and Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine, whose office is prosecuting this case. Okay? Now, he was denied his motion to get all these subpoenas and get all these witnesses like Obama and Eric Holder to come down and testify. But anyway, and DeWine is claiming that the political donations are kind of a sidebar to the scam. The prosecutors intend to call 75 witnesses, among them Navy veterans, lawyers, Thompson's plastic surgery, and nearly a dozen men whose identities prosecutors say he stole. Now, it turns out that Bobby Thompson isn't even his real name, okay? What happened was his real name is John Donald Cody, and he graduated Harvard. Okay, he's a Harvard-trained lawyer who spent 8 years in intelligence officer in the Army. In 1980, he left the military and was running a small law firm in Sierra Vista, Arizona. A client accused him of stealing $100,000, and Cody disappeared. The FBI, in 1987, the FBI placed Cody on the most wanted list for fraud and wanted him for questioning in an espionage investigation. Now, while the FBI is looking for him, Cody moves to Tampa and starts Navy Veterans, this charity group, right? And he used telemarketers. They brought in more than $20 million a year. Okay, but then it shows that the receipts submitted by Navy veterans for an IRS audit in 2009 show the charity was spending money on things like natural ice beer, 2-window air conditioning units, Just for Men hair dye, and tubes of mustache wax. Right, so then it turns out that he had a handlebar mustache, so that they traced that back to his mustache, right? That is there, and then it's kind of funny too. Oh, get this! One of his co-conspirators is named Blanca Contreras of Tampa, a former strawberry picker with an 8th grade education, and she pled guilty to theft and money laundering charges in 2011 and is serving a 5-year sentence in Ohio. So he gets a migrant worker, a cherry picker, a strawberry picker to be his next in command over there, to put their name on the paper. Same thing as the tiny house scam going on in Haiti. And then it's kind of funny too. One of his responses, right? He talks about how, the Navy veterans' money was to use for members, and I'm a member, so I needed some hair dye and some mustache wax, and I needed my strawberries picked quickly. So anyway, he gave a ton of money to Republican politicians. There's also an odd mystery here that went on because they're talking about how this Ohio state investigator and the prosecutor's office were searching the country for this guy, and they had his fingerprints in the FBI, or his fingerprints were sent to the FBI National Database, but no match came back, and they should have had his fingerprints in the FBI database. So his attorneys claim, well, that's because he has friends in high places, and the U.S. State Department had his fingerprint cards removed for a reason. So there's a lot of skullduggery going on here, and fascinating that it all connects to Ohio. And I'm doing this big interview this week with Rusty, or is it Rocky? Let me see. Yeah, Rocky Ratliff, the attorney for the victims of the OSU case. And that one's going to curl your hair when you see that. Because, Jim Jordan was a prosecutor down there, too, in Ohio. And his name comes up all over this thing. It's kind of interesting. I've been talking to a couple of people on this, one of the victims and one of the lawyers. And one of the victims claims that Jim Jordan was in there masturbating. And they, this thing about how he would have some of these young athletes scrape the sweat off his body using a tongue depressor in this sauna where he used to hang out with these hand-picked friends of his, and his behavior in there. Now, when I talked to the attorney, Rocky Ratliff, he says he believes that Jordan confronted Dr. Strauss about his behavior, but there's no record of it. And so but the fact that Jim Jordan is saying that he was unaware of this is impossible. Jim Jordan was an athlete in that school. He was a top athlete. He had to have had the same examinations that these other people had. Later on, he was an assistant coach. Everyone there was talking about it. I did a whole show about this, talking about how it was like a gay bathhouse where anybody with a college ID, any kind of employee ID of that college could go there and shower with the athletes. And when the coach, some of the coaches were so disturbed by this behavior that they started switching the times of the practices. But word would get out to these perverts, and they would all show up, even when the times of the practices were switched. So that's going to be an incredible show. I'm taping with him on Saturday. We should play it Saturday night. Might go in the member section. I might in the Patreon. I'm not sure yet. But keep an eye out there and keep checking the Patreon to see what goes up there. Because all the old member section shows is going up there. Some of the best ones first. And then little by little, all the rest will be going up too as well. Oh, one of the old shows I'm looking for that I'm trying to find. It was one of my old solo Friday night shows. And I don't know, I kind of came up with this plan, clever idea to make clever titles, like double entendres, of the titles and the subjects I'm covering. But I did a show where I read some court documents of Bill O'Reilly. Fox News Bill O'Reilly. And by the way, this is when he still had a show, okay, because he got sued by some interns and employees of his producers that worked for him, assistant producers, where he would call them up on the phone late at night and get into, and want to have phone sex with them. And he would have an electronic vibrating dildo that he would want to use on these women. And there was one call in particular where the woman obviously recorded the call, and there was a transcript of the call included in one of her complaints for this lawsuit. By the way, they settled with this woman for a lot of money. I became aware that this woman got a huge settlement. But it's a great one because he's trying to have phone sex with this poor young woman, man, and she's telling him she doesn't want to, but he goes ahead with it anyway, with the vibrator in the background, and he's trying to talk about how he's going to take her into the shower and get the glove, the loofah. You know how they have those loofah, that loofah thing, in the shower, and it takes off the dead skin, and they have like a glove mitt that's made out of, the loofah material. But in his confusion, he refers to it as the falafel. Okay? Now, I actually read this whole thing, and people thought I made it up, but you can find this. You can go to thesmokinggun.com and become aware of this yourself. The old Bill O'Reilly stuff on it. And man, this guy got no shame. Still